Why hello there, it's Professor Joel and welcome to another episode of Planet Scooby Reviews. Today we are covering the Ozark Witch Switch, which is the 6th episode of the 2nd season of the Scooby-Doo Show, and it originally aired on October 15th, 1977. I'm very excited to review this episode because it is the favorite episode of the YouTube channel, all about Scooby-Doo and more. I'll leave a link below. Very awesome channel. They do a lot of ranking videos and reveals and very cool Scooby-Doo videos, and I respect this person's opinion, so very happy to review this episode. This episode sees the gang spending the night in the Hatfields cabin where the Ghost Witch McCoy appears and is turning everyone into frogs. So Hatfields and McCoy's is like this old-timey kind of American, I think in the Ozarks or mountain area of the States, just this national feud that went on forever, I guess. And this kind of harkens back to that kind of era. And that's all I really have for any kind of trivia for this episode. So let's get on with the review. The episode begins on a dark and stormy night in the Ozarks. On top of a mountain cliff, we see a witch who exclaims she will not rest until the Hatfields are revenged upon. The witch then turns into a black cat.
I will never rest until the Hatfields are revenged upon.
In the Mystery Machine, the gang drive down some back roads where they are on vacation. Their plan is to leisurely float down the river the next day. Unfortunately, the Mystery Machine blows all 4 tires.
Are you sure this is a shortcut to the Ozark River?
We're on vacation, remember? Just think of all the fun we'll have floating down the river on our rafts tomorrow. Sounds like we have a flat tire.
You mean 4 flat tires?
Oh, great. Stuck here for the night.
Abandoned on the road, the gang spot an old cabin with the lights on. Knocking on the door, the owner relentlessly invites the gang in at their own risk.
Forget the tires. We better find a place to spend the night.
Look, an old cabin.
Yeah.
Our van broke down with 4 flat tires.
Can you put us up for the night?
Okay, you can stay, but at your own risk.
Inside, we meet the last of the Hatfields who moved into the old McCoy cabin a year ago. Last month, the Ghost of Witch McCoy showed up and threatened to turn the Hatfields into frogs and lizards. Witch McCoy was a woman who was hung 100 years ago for witchcraft. She's after the Hatfields due to a feud between the two families.
Weans is the last of the Hatfield family. We moved into this place, the old McCoy cabin, about a year ago.
About a month ago, the Ghost of Witch McCoy started showing up around here, threatening to get vengeance and turn us all into frogs and lizards.
Who's Witch McCoy?
A wicked old crone they say was hung for witchcraft 100 years ago.
She's after us for the old-time feuding with her kinfolk, but she ain't gonna drive us out of this cabin.
In the middle of the night while the gang are sleeping, Witch McCoy makes her entrance. Scooby is the first to be scared as the witch crawls into bed with Shaggy and Scooby. The rest of the gang wake up as the witch gives the gang a warning and then disappears.
Leave this cabin before you're all doomed.
She disappeared.
Oh! Pa's gone. Mercy me, she changed Pa into a frog.
In another room, we hear Ma Hatfield scream, where we discover that Pa Hatfield has been turned into a frog. Scooby and Shaggy go into the town of Spooky Hollow to find a phone and call the sheriff, while Freddy and the girls decide to explore the woods for clues. Knocking on the door of Spooky Hollow General Store, Scooby and Shaggy spot a phone, so they break in to use the telephone. Just after they get in, the owner, Eggy Wilkins, shows up and scolds Scooby and Shaggy for breaking in.
What are you doing in my store?
You see, Witch McCoy turned poor old Pa Hatfield into a frog. So we came to call the sheriff and saw your phone. So can we call him?
If and Witch McCoy's running loose again, you better call the sheriff.
Shaggy, look! Yikes! No wonder the phone's dead. Somebody killed it.
You best stay away from anything to do with Witch McCoy and her cave up on Spider Mountain.
Oh?
It's been said that anyone that's dared to go up there has never been seen alive again.
After explaining their story, Shaggy calls the sheriff, but the phone is dead as the line has been cut. The store owner then tells him to stay away from the witch's cave in Spider Mountain. Scooby and Shaggy then run away after Witch McCoy in cat form shows up to frighten them. In the woods, Freddy, Daphne, and Velma spot a zombie-like figure digging a hole.
Well, nobody's planting turnips this time of night. He looks like a zombie.
After slipping, Daphne scares the man off. Back at the cabin, Scooby and Shaggy explain their ordeal, warning the rest of the gang that they need to avoid Spider Mountain. Obviously, however, Freddy has other ideas, so they head up towards that spot.
And then Aggie Wilkins warned us to have nothing to do with Witch McCoy or her cave up at Spider Mountain.
It's a fur piece back in the woods. Weans don't go near there 'cause it's so spooky.
We really shouldn't be doing this.
On the way up, Velma spots strange marks gouged into the trail, and Daphne pulls out her camera to snap a picture. Spotting an old sawmill, Freddy realizes that they are very close, but when they come to a fork in the road, the gang have to split off. Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby are the first to arrive at the cave, but they have to cross a deadly chasm across a log to get across.
Strange-looking marks gouged in the trail.
It could be a clue.
I'll take a picture of the marks and maybe we'll figure it out later.
Ma Hatfield said the witch's cave was up beyond the old sawmill.
Wow, there it is, the witch's cave.
While on the log, the zombie pushes it in so they fall into the chasm. Fortunately, blind luck saves them and they land near the cliff. Inside the cliff, we spot the witch's lair, which includes a cauldron, as well as a library of spooky spells. One of the spells references nails and boards, which Velma thinks is a clue regarding the old cabin.
15 nails east to west, middle north, the board with the knot twice and once again. A string will show it all.
Finally, they hear the witch who cackles loudly as she searches for intruders.
Who's in here? If I find any intruders in my cave, I'll turn them into toads.
Velma has a plan and dresses Scooby up as a witch. The scene is quite humorous, but ultimately fails as our brave trio runs off to only get caught in a net.
I'm going to cook up a lizard and frog stew, and you'll be the frogs. But first, I must go get my lizards and the salt and pepper.
Putting Velma, Scooby, and Shaggy into a cauldron, the witch heads off to find some lizards to put in her soup. This gives Velma, Scooby, and Shaggy just enough time to escape. The gang then all head back to the cabin where the Hatfields, including the dog, have all been turned into frogs. Freddy also finds a mound of sawdust. Inside the Mystery Machine photo lab, Daphne develops the image she took before, and Velma figures out its Morse code. The letters read S and M.
Excuse me? A baking powder?
It's Morse code.
3 dots and 2 dashes, SM and sawdust.
Velma had also snagged a spell book from the cave which reads 15 nails from east to west, where they are to follow the middle nail towards a board with a knot. Knocking twice, Scooby finds a string which they pull and the board opens up. Between all the clues, Freddy and Velma have figured everything out, so they set up a trap where they hide a fake clue. So both the zombie and the witch find the fake clue and head to the spot it indicates to dig.
Like there she is.
Now let's see if she takes the bait.
So far, so good.
And like there goes Fright Face too.
They bought it. Let's go.
And there they begin to argue. Meanwhile, Shaggy, Scooby, and Velma, wearing white powder, show up and frighten the witch with threats of spells. Daphne and Velma also appear and add to the spookiness of the scene. The trap gets even more elaborate, frightening off the zombie who Scooby traps himself. The zombie turns out to be Zeke Harkins, who recently broke out of prison after stealing $500,000. Meanwhile, the witch turns out to be Aggie Wilkins, Zeke's old girlfriend. Zeke had hidden the money with the coordinates hidden in the Hatfield wall. Both Zeke and Aggie wanted the money for themselves, so they were working against one another to find it before the other did. Meanwhile, Aggie needed to find out where those coordinates were, so she had to scare the Hatfields out of their cabin.
Let's see who our witch really is.
Zoinks! It's Aggie Wilkins.
Why, I know him. He's Zeke Harkins, the bank robber who just broke out of state prison. Aggie is Zeke's old girlfriend.
Zeke had buried the loot from the bank job, $500,000.
He broke out of prison when he learned Aggie had found directions in his old spell book to the map in the cabin and planned to grab the money herself.
But meanwhile, the Hatfields had moved into the cabin, so Aggie dreamed up the witch idea to get rid of them.
Like she even used her pet cat to make us think it could turn into a witch.
Now, it's just a matter of time of finding the Hatfields, and the gang explained that they are in the sawmill. The S and M found in Morse code hinted at the sawmill, as well as the pile of sawdust that Freddy found in the cabin earlier. With the Hatfields rescued and another mystery solved, the gang sit down to an Ozark feast before heading off on their next adventure. I give this episode a 10 out of 10. There is a lot to love about this episode, and it's so fast-paced and action-packed. Not a second is ever wasted as the story unfolds. This just keeps moving along, keeps the atmosphere kind of spooky, good comedy, awesome episode. Some of these Scooby-Doo Season 2 episodes are among my favorites. I would include this. The witch is super creepy with such an evil cackle, and her ability to like shapeshift into a hostile and bitter black cat that like hisses at you. Very cool. The zombie just kind of looks like a regular man, which is cool. He looks creepy. I know he's like a zombie or whatnot, and you might expect something different for a zombie, but I think just having him as like a scary looking man that works for me, man. Very cool. So yeah, kind of plain, but I felt that made him much more scarier and threatening because he didn't look like the cartoonish zombie we got in Mamba Wamba or Which Witch is Which. We didn't get much time to spend with Freddy or Daphne in this episode, but I felt the time we spent on Velma hanging out with Scooby and Shaggy kind of made up for that lost time. So I enjoyed that. Even though we didn't get as much Freddy or Daphne, I kind of appreciated that we got some time spent with Velma and Scooby and Shaggy. I thought that was really cool. Anyway, that is my rating. Not much more to say about it. Just an awesome episode. Watch it if you haven't already. If you haven't watched in a long time, give it a rewatch. Very cool episode. It is hard to find though. We've never gotten a season 2 fully released on Blu-ray or DVD for season 2 of the Scooby-Doo Show. Anyway, I only have one more episode to review for season 2 of the Scooby-Doo Show, and that is the Creepy Heap from the Deep. I'll be covering that next week. So until then, stay spooky.